Hey everybody, Rosematter here. Welcome to part 6 of my Chaos Child Let's Play. The last episode was crazy. So much stuff happened. We got a look into Kurusu's home life at the group home that she is at with her father figure and her siblings, not actually siblings. Getting a little bit of backstory into like life before Takaru left. But of course, the big things were Sarika and Takaru breaking into the hospital, going into the psych ward, and Takaru, at least, spotting a girl drawing the sumo faces all over her room with blood, and yet Sarika didn't see her. There was the whole thing again with the door unlocking to allow them into the room, him recording without realizing it. There's these connections happening, and the encountering that little girl and the old woman who took his phone when he dropped it as they were running away. And we ended the episode with Kurusu being stabbed. So it was a whole lot to take in. So I'm very interested to be like, what the heck is going to happen from here? So without further ado, let's get back into the story.
Takuru 兄ちゃん。
来る。さあ。
Yui pointed toward the exam room in the back with a pained expression on her face. Damn it. What? Gen-san?
なんで。いや、クルズは。
静かにしなさい。一応病院なんだから。
I'm guessing Gen-san was the one who found her. I feel like Gen-san is... Here I am being suspicious again. It's reminding me of in the first game, oh gosh, I can't remember her dang name, Senna, where her father was like the homeless guy that was just always around. Not to say that Gen is like a bad guy, but I feel like maybe there's more to him than meets the eye. Was she okay?
Takuru?
何？
靴脱ぎなさい。
ごめん。
I'd forgotten to take them off when I came in, so I quickly yanked them off my feet.
僕。
何？
いや、その。
I could see a bandage through the gaps in her pajamas.
ああ、これ？
Kurusu lifted up her shirt just a little to show me her stomach. It was wrapped in a thick bandage.
13針。大したことない。
Damn, she's badass.
お前！
I felt a dull pain in my face. I fell to the ground, but then he grabbed me by the shirt and lifted me back up.
ざけんなよ！お前、何してんだよ！
ちょっと、川原くん。
探偵ごっこがなんか知らねえけど、余計なことしてるからこんなことになんだろうが。死んでてもおかしくなかったんだぞ。
川原くん。
He pushed me away violently, my face stung from the punch.
おう、青少年。世のビールはこれか。
はい。他にもいろいろ入っているそうです。
すまないな。
ゲンさん、ありがとうございました。川原くん、それゲンさんの家まで運ぶのを手伝ってもらえる？
いや、でも
Man, this guy's such a simp. Like, you know, he was like, I'm the White Knight. I was here for Kurusu. She's finally going to acknowledge me and jealous of me because of the fact that I have like a close relationship with her. And then she just casts him away. Like, yeah, go help the drunk guy.
お願い。
わかったよ。あの。
Kawahara-kun glared at me for a minute, then picked up the cardboard box and left.
おう、タク。
ケンさん、なんで？
まあ、いろいろだな。おう、嬢ちゃん、養生しろよ。
はい。ゲンさんも。相変わらずひょうひょうとしてる人ね。
どうして？いや、じゃなくて、何があったんだ？大丈夫なのか
Kurusu's hand slowly stretched down to the wound on her stomach.
助けられたの。通りかかったゲンさんに。刺したやつを取り押さえてくれた。
Oh, he caught him. Oh, well, he caught the person. It didn't specify whether it was a man or a woman.
あなたが仕掛けたカメラ、正確には伊藤くん？
So maybe she was supposed to be the next victim. But, you know, things just happened differently because she was in the place where all of those stickers were. Except it's not the 10th yet, is it? That's not when, like, that's when the victim is supposed to appear.
それは。
まあいいね。とにかくカメラを外している時に妙なやつに声をかけられたの。聖なる結界の場所でどうしたこうした。意味がわからなかったけど、それでいきなり詰め寄
I
ら
wonder
れ
if
て。
it's that girl that was like at the very, very beginning, the one that was kind of stumbling around. Because they keep saying person, they don't say man specifically, so I bet it's going to be a reveal that it was a girl. And stabbed her.
まったくどこで売ってるのかしらね。ああいうナイフって。
She's way too chill about this. Her voice was far more cheerful than I'd expected it to be. Maybe she's on some of that good shit. For some reason, that made everything suddenly seem real. Kurusu had really been stabbed.
それでどうなったんだよ。
殴って逃げたに決まってるでしょ。そこにゲンさんが通りかかって取り押さえて、で110番。タクル？
傷は大丈夫なのか？
脇腹を軽く削ぐような傷だから、内臓
Still,
は無事。
13 stitches though. I don't know. The only time I've ever had stitches was when I cut my finger when I was like very, very young. I don't know if 13 stitches is a lot. It probably isn't.
おや、宮代くん。来てたのか。久しぶりだな。
Oh, that's the teacher, right? Teachers definitely have to say shit. I suspect all the adults in these games all the time. But yeah, like what's the teacher and the other guy doing there? Like I would assume that they weren't with Kurusu at the time.
お、玄ちゃんと川原少年はどうした？
帰ってもらったの。
例のお土産は？
渡しました。川原くんに頼んだから。
I see, Dad said as he scratched his head. It really had been a while since I'd last seen Dad's face, not since I'd left the dorm.
佐久間さん、私はこれで。ああ、そうでしたね。この度は、ののがすいませんでした。いいえ、クルス君にはいつもお世話になっているので。じゃあ、クルス君、お大事にね。
ありがとうございます。ご迷惑おかけしました。
そうだ。宮代君もいるならちょうどいいか。
The teacher turned around and scratched his head the same way Dad did.
ちょっと言いづらいんだけど、それにまあ君たちが完全に悪いってわけでもないんだけど、おそらく新聞部は活動を自粛してもらうことになると思う。こんなことが起きちゃった以上は。
I gave a weak nod. It didn't seem like there was anything I could do about it.
まあね、これもいい教訓だと思って、いや、失礼かな。つまりね。
先生、
はい。
お疲れ様でした。
Kurusu made a motion to shoo him away.
はい。
Kurusu suddenly sighed.
疲れた。
お前、教師からも怖がられてんのか。
違います。あの先生はいつもあんな感じなの。
Yeah, like some random teacher
やっぱり上で休む。
that shouldn't be all that important but keeps showing up. Yeah, I'm suspicious of this teacher. I want to believe that this guy, this dad figure, is actually a good dude, and he's fine. Nothing suspicious about him. I have my suspicions about the teacher, though.
大丈夫か？明日の診察までは寝てていいぞ。
痛み少しだけど引いてきたから。自分のベッドの方が楽。
運ばれた病院で薬何もらったんだ？
That's what I'm saying. They give her the good shit.
ファロとロキ。少し多めに飲んだの。あげませんからね。
バカか。タグ。もし熱が出たらすぐ言えよ。
Kurisu slowly got up. I noticed she was pushing herself up with her hands to avoid putting pressure on her stomach.
クルス、ごめん、僕が。
タクル、あなた今日泊まっていきなさい。
I knew her wounds had to hurt, but she was acting completely normal. That just made me feel even more depressed. I said yes in a voice so small, even I could barely hear it.
大丈夫よ。そんなにじっと見てなくても。
あ、いや。
Fursu slowly lay down on her bed. I told her I would help her get up to the third floor, but she'd said it would just make it harder for her to walk. At least I could bring the blanket all the way up to her shoulders.
ありがとう。やっぱり違和感あるわね。看病される側って慣れてないの。あ、ちゃんと冷やしときなさいよ。
Fursu pointed to my cheek. She must have been talking about where Kawahara-kun hit me.
こんな時まで他人の心配するなよ。
And it was my fault that this had happened.
あなたね、言っておくけど。
Fursu tried to raise her head up, but her wound must have hurt because she grimaced and laid back down. Oh, the little bear with his no-no on it. That's
あ
so
なたの
cute.
せいじゃないからね。刺されたのはあくまで私の責任。
でも、僕がカメラなんて仕掛けなければ。
それは確かに褒められたことじゃないけど、でも予想できたことじゃないでしょ。
That was true, but...
ああ、カメラ返しておく。ユイがその辺に置いてくれてない？
I looked around the room and saw there was a paper bag on the desk. The camera I had Ito set up was inside. There was some damage on a corner. It must have been dropped when she was stabbed.
どんなやつだったんだよ。 その犯人。
Once again, they didn't specify it was a guy. They just kept saying person, they.
暗くてよく
Oh,
見えなかった
okay,
けど、
never mind.
2、
Goes.
30歳くらいの男。ごめん、
She says she
電気
thinks it
消
was
して
a
くれる？
man.
仰向けに寝てると眩しい。
The fact that she was being so vague about the gender of the person made me think it was a girl.
ああ。
I turned off the lights. Kurusu sighed to calm herself down.
玄さんに取り押さえられて、警官が来るまでわめき散らしてた。俺のネットの継承に気づかないお前たちごときがとか、犠牲者の聖なる使いの俺に触れるなとかね。
I wonder if it was the person who set up who has that website that they went on, the one who was going on about the sumo stickers and the prophecy and all that. I suddenly realized it reminded me of something. It was the same with that stuff about a barrier that Kurusu was saying downstairs. Could he be? Yeah.
あのページの管理人。
詳しくは明日警察の人が来ていくつか聞くことがあるって言ってたから、その時わかるとは思うけど。
It felt like her voice was shaking a little.
クルス。
なんでもない。大丈夫。
It was too dark to see clearly, but I could tell she had her hand on her face. I finally realized she was holding back tears. I swore at myself. Of course she is, damn it. She got stabbed in the stomach. Of course she's scared. Neither of us said anything for a while. I couldn't bring myself to say another word. Nothing I said would be right, and it felt like it would hurt her. I couldn't see her face. I didn't know if she was crying. But even if she wasn't crying, she might as well have been.
タクル？
I don't know how long I was silent for. My eyes had finally gotten used to the dark by the time she whispered.
言うとね、ラブレターもらったんですって。今野さん、覚えてる？
I didn't. I tried to remember, but maybe she wasn't expecting an answer.
5年生の時から同じクラスの。一度、優斗が休んだ時にプリントを持ってきてくれたメガネをかけた子。それをクラスの男の子にからかわれたらしくて。それでユイが。
And then she started to go on in a quiet voice. She told me Dad had been busy lately, that he was being as obnoxious as ever, that she had ordered him to stop drinking for a week today, that Yui was still afraid of men, but that she'd made friends with a boy in her class, that Yuto wasn't getting any taller. He said it didn't bother him, but it obviously did. That the air conditioner in the living room wasn't working well, and she had Yui cut Dad's allowance to buy a new one. That the two of them were saving up their own allowance, too. That the old woman who was a regular at Aoba Clinic, the one who taught Kurusu how to sew, wasn't doing so well lately. That she'd mixed up a clothes hanger with a clothespin, and one of the patients had laughed at her. I listened to her for a long time, only speaking occasionally. Her voice gradually got softer, and eventually I realized that she was talking in her sleep, and I realized something.
そうか。
Kurusu was telling me everything that had happened here in the 6 months I'd been gone for. What had happened at home. What Dad, Yui, and Yuto had been up to. She'd been saying all of this because she wanted me to know.
それでね。
As I waited for her to finish her sentence, I could hear her soft breathing. She'd fallen asleep. I slowly stood up, careful not to make a sound. I adjusted the blanket over her once more and went to leave.
タクル。
ん？
事件を追うのは。
She was probably talking in her sleep. I heard the rest as I left the room, and I understood what she was saying all too well. My room hadn't changed at all since I'd left half a year ago. It still had the same old bookshelves, same old desk, and the same old bed. Everything was just as I remembered it.
本当にびっくりするくらい何も変わってないな。
I figured it would either have been turned into a storage room or be covered in dust.
そっか、スマホは。
Oh yeah, that's right, that whole situation with his phone. I checked my pockets for my phone, only to realize I dropped it at the hospital, and that those two weird people had picked it up. I couldn't do it. I tried to remember what happened at the hospital, but instead I found myself thinking about the girl in the next room. My body was tired. My brain was telling me I needed to think about everything that had happened tonight, but I felt too exhausted. So I took out the scrapbook from its usual spot on the shelf. The same articles, the same incidents from the past. I'd seen them so many times I was tired of reading about them. The newspaper article was from around 6 years ago during the Shibuya earthquake. The title was Robbery at Refugee Shelter. My parents' names were in the article. Miyashiro Sanio? Miyashiro Eriko. The article said the two of them had been killed by an unknown assailant. Okay, so there we go. So we know what happened to his parents, but there's probably more to it than that. When I'd found out about this several months ago, I'd left the dorm and went to live in Miyashita Park. Okay, so that was the tipping point. I'd been told about my parents' deaths when I'd woken up from my coma about a year after the earthquake, but Dad and Caruso had told me they died because of the earthquake. Oh shit, okay, so he was mad at them for keeping that secret from him. I closed the scrapbook and put it back on the shelf. The fact my parents were murdered instead of simply dying in the earthquake was a shock to me, but I think it was a lot less of a shock than Dad and Caruso expected. I experienced the earthquake personally. I'd seen for myself how awful the looting and robbery was. My parents had neglected me and spent all their time at work. Okay. All right, we're getting a definition for neglect, a type of abuse. In this case, it refers to parental neglect of a child. Examples of neglect include failure to provide food, failure to provide care during a time of illness, failure to provide a child with a sanitary environment, failure to show interest in a child, or failure to provide any type of general care. Neglect can also be shown to the elderly and disabled by those in a position to care for them. The 5.5 years that had passed since their murder crushed any desire I had to find the killer and take revenge. No, maybe I never would have wanted to take revenge in the first place. My curiosity just made me want to find them.
そんなことより
It was that they lied to him. It was a shock to me that Dad and Caruso were keeping it secret. There were 2 rules at Aobai dorm. Oh yeah, no secrets. After dinner, everyone would gather around the table to talk, and no one was allowed to keep secrets. Just before I'd left, we'd had a huge fight. During the fight, Caruso had told me she didn't want to make things worse after I'd woken up from my coma. But at the time, that sounded like nothing but an excuse. I thought we weren't supposed to keep secrets, Caruso. I'd called her by her last name. And then he never called her by her first name again. Even when he was worried about her being stabbed, he still was calling her by her last name. By the time I'd calmed down enough to think about how she must have felt, I'd already moved to Miyashita Park. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door.
はい。
私入っていい？
It was Yui's voice. I told her she could come in, and the door opened slowly.
どうした？
ちょっと。
The two of them were together, like usual. Yuto looked like he was so tired he could barely stand. The only reason she'd brought him was probably because if he woke up in the dark alone, he'd be scared. This was another sight that brought back a lot of memories.
久しぶり、タクルに。
ああ、ダメだろ、こんな時間に。
I didn't know how late it was exactly. And here's another connection between this and Chaos. Chaos had, wasn't Takumi, didn't his sister also call him Big Bro? I didn't know how late it was exactly, but it was probably long past 3 a.m.
ちょっとくらいいいじゃん。ののね、大丈夫そうだった？
今は寝てるよ。
そっか、よかった。
Yui looked truly relieved.
まったく、ののねもいくら日課だからってあんな時間にお参りなんて行くから。
Wait, what? Yeah, that's a, the memorial. I know they showed her going to the memorial. But,
タクル兄からも言っといてよね。
But it was when she was taking down the camera. What does the memorial have to do with it?
クルスがお参りだって。
うん。帰ってきた時にそう言ってたよ。
Oh, okay. So she didn't, wait, so she didn't actually tell them, like, okay, I'm confused. Did she do this to keep it a secret from what she was actually doing? And in that case, she's keeping secrets again. My heart skipped a beat. What was Kurusu doing? How much could she...
あ、タクル兄ちゃん。
Yuto suddenly opened his eyes.
どうした？
なんでも。
Then he put his head against Yui's shoulder and stopped moving. Yui sighed and held Yuto up so he didn't fall over.
タクルに何があったか知らないけどさ、とっとと帰ってきてよね。お風呂の掃除当番溜まってるんだから。あと買い出し当番も。
I froze, unsure of what to say. Yui gave up on holding him steady and put him on her back.
部屋綺麗でしょ？のの姉がいつも掃除してるから。じゃあおやすみ。
あ。
I slid my hand across the desk. There wasn't a single speck of dust. The second I saw this, I felt a sharp pain deep in my nose, and my vision blurred. I sat down, unable to stand. Felt the familiar sensation of the chair, and stared at the wall I'd seen a million times before.
くそ。なんだよ。
When I'd left here, the biggest thing I felt wasn't rage at being betrayed by Dad at Kurusu. It was that I was different than everyone else. After I'd gotten so sick of the wrong-siders in elementary school that I'd stopped going altogether. And after my parents had neglected me, this was the one place in my life that had been different. Kurusu, Yui, and Yuto had all lost their parents in the earthquake, just like me. This was a family made of people who'd all gone through the same thing. But I was different. I wasn't just a victim. I was a victim whose parents had been murdered. I was the one person who was different. I was special. I wasn't like everyone else.
弟というか、家族でもなんでもないじゃんか。僕たちは。
And the tears started to flow. In my head, I apologized to Kurusu again and again as I sat there, unable to get up from my chair. Alright, let's take a look at this. At approximately 5 p.m. on October 6th, near Shoto 1st Avenue, Shibuya, a girl walking home from school was asked by a suspicious man, "Do you know where I can get some chanko?" Chanko is a favorite dish of sumo wrestlers. The man asking her was around 30 years old, 170 centimeters tall, heavy-set with black hair, whose face looked very similar to the face on the sumo stickers. Always stay on a well-lit, heavily traveled road. Carry a personal alarm with you. Wait. Wasn't she say it was something about this? Because October 6th, that would, a man who looked like the sumo sticker asked someone for directions. Okay, so this doesn't have anything to do with Kurusu, because she was saying something about they were talking about like a gate and a barrier and stuff like this. Give the poor man a break. Is it wrong for a fat guy to want some chanko? It's a jungle out there. People like us can't do anything without getting the cops called. Are they sure he wasn't an actual sumo wrestler? Why? What does he have to do with the sumo stickers? So now you're a suspicious person for asking directions. What the hell? I'm gonna be honest, talking to a schoolgirl was a no-no. Talking to a schoolboy would also be a no-no. The only safe option would be find a real sumo wrestler and ask him. Actually, I think I saw the guy a week ago. He was running down Tamagawa Dori, really sweaty. He kept mumbling, Chonko, Chonko, Chonko. He really did look like the sumo sticker guy. Maybe he was a model for them. Someone tell me if he ever actually got his Chonko. I'd piss myself if a guy like that talked to me. A guy who looks like the sumo sticker? Says who, lol. The news said they found a sumo sticker at the scene of the Love Hotel killing last month. Maybe this guy was a murderer. Like, maybe he places a sticker every time he commits a murder. Japan is such a peaceful place. Get thee to a sumo ring. In other words, he looked for his Chonko for a whole week. Let's hope when they arrest him, they give him Chonko instead of Katsudon.
少しずつでも確実に歴史シールというものが人々の間に不確実な噂として浸透し始めていた。噂は集団の中で憶測を呼び、ありもしない幻影、つまりは妄想を生み出していく。一度動き出した歯車はもう誰にも止められないのだということに僕らは気づいていなかった。
So we're talking about like the delusion. So maybe that is the whole point, is to get, they want to get like people talking about the sumo stickers because it's a whole thing. Like maybe when people are like, think about it, they're aware of it, it creates delusions. There's a purpose for like getting people to talk about the stickers and all this. I don't know. 2 p.m. As the whole school got excited for the start of the culture festival in 2 days, our club room was as quiet as a tomb. The only sound was Serika's occasional fiddling with her cell phone strap. But that would quickly stop, and only the silence would remain. Kazuki had even stopped playing ESO2. Everyone had looked miserable when they'd heard about Kurusu.
ごめんごめん。お待たせ。
The teacher came in with his usual dopey grin, right? It's always the ones that seem like a little bit a little dumb, a little like scatterbrained, and they're secretly behind something, like they're much more competent than they let on. I got my eye on you, man.
会議が長引いちゃってね。無茶なこと言われるこっちの立場も考えてほしいもんだよね。まったく。ああ。
He looked around at us and scratched his head.
新聞部のことなんだけれど。
Everyone looked at him. That's why we had been waiting to hear what he had to say.
やっぱり当分の間は活動休止にするそうだ。
Shut down. I repeated the words in my mind.
決定ですか？
こうなっちゃった以上はね。
Kurusu hadn't told Yui and Yuto, but before she'd been taken to the hospital, the police had asked her several questions. She had to tell them what she was doing out there. Of course she would, otherwise she'd have no reason to explain the camera. And after the incident at the Love Hotel, the teachers probably had it out for us to begin with. Thinking back, it was a miracle we weren't shut down after the Love Hotel case.
ただ、一個条件というか命令というか、罪滅ぼしっていうんじゃないんだろうけど、なんて言ったらいいかな。
いや、何でもいいですから。何です？
ね。
He looked down at the paper he was holding.
君たち、渡部智明って知ってるかい？
Huh?
ネット記者のですか？
そうそう、ニコニア動画の。宮代くんよく知ってるね。
いえ。
Of course I knew. He was famous to anyone who used Nikonia, and the club had just been talking about the video he made the other day. And a lot of the class knew about him from his job at Nikonia too.
彼から文化祭で新聞部と対談したいっていうオファーが来てるんだ。
は？なんで？
さあね、もともとうちの文化祭を渡部さんは取材することになっていたらしいんだけどね。ほら、うちって結構有名だから。
Was it about the Restoration Festival? It was true our culture festival was considered to be part of the run-up to the big Shibuya Restoration Festival.
で、その際にぜひ新聞部と対談したいって言うんだ。 なんでも君たちが作成した新聞に興味があるらしくてね。
マジかよ。
The newspaper we'd made. He was probably talking about the video we'd made on the sumo stickers. The one that had gotten all those views because Watabe had come out with the same article at almost the same time.
僕は知らなかったんだけど、最近結構有名な人らしいじゃないか。それで学校側としては断りにくくてね。活動は休止だけど、その対談だけはこなしてほしいって言うんだよ。対面として。いいかな。
いいかなって言われても。
It was all so sudden that I was having a hard time processing it. And wait.
学校側からの指示なんですよね。
He nodded. Then we didn't have the right to refuse, did we?
わかりました。
よかった。いや本当は廃部って言われてたところ、この件で粘って休止にしてもらったからさ。
That wasn't funny.
対談は文化祭初日、あさってだから。細かい段取りはまた明日連絡するよ。あとそれからクルス君からの伝言なんだけど。
え？
部の活動自体は本日から休止だから、文化祭の記録映像を撮ったりはもうできない。その代わり生徒会の手伝いをしてほしいそうだ。自分の空いた穴を埋めてくれって。
そっか、のんちゃん会長だもんね。
今度の文化祭は盛り上がってるからね。手が足りないんだ。生徒会顧問としてもぜひ頼むよ。
Normally, I turn down any request from the student council.
でも。
Right now, it didn't bother me at all.
わかりました。
助かるよ。じゃあ後で生徒会室に顔を出してね。
渡部と対談ってマジか。
That was a pretty big deal, yeah. No one had come to interview the newspaper club since its founding. But this wasn't entirely a good thing. The club had been shut down, but we were still having an interview with someone famous. And more than anything, I thought about Kurusu, who was still at home in bed. Sarika stood up from her seat. She walked over to the windowsill and opened the window. Chilly air blew into the room.
尾上？
She suddenly leaned out the window and screamed. She's like, okay, just had to get that out of my system. And then she leaned back inside and closed the window.
よし、切り替えよう。タク、しんちゃん、はなちゃん。ほら、タク、仕切ってよ。
え？
のんちゃんからの頼まれ事でしょ。やれるとこからやろう。
Sarika looked right at me as she spoke. Ito and Kazuki turned toward me as well.
タク？
Fine, fine. I slapped myself on the cheeks to help me focus. The place where Kawahara-kun hit me still stung.
よし。じゃあまず、伊藤、生徒会室に行って生徒会から何をやればいいか指示を仰いできてくれるか。俺？お前は？僕は行かない方がいい。
I pointed to my cheek. Ito nodded. Kawahara-kun was the vice president of the student council.
ああ、私も行くよ。
わかった。じゃあ和樹は。
She's like, nah. She was going back to her game, huh?
何すればいいか分かったら手伝ってくれよ。
うん。
She nodded, just a little.
お前は？渡部との対談の準備をしておくよ。多分力士シールの動画に関することだと思うけど。だよな。何なんだろうな、このタイミングで。
That was a good question, yeah. Why would a reporter come meet with the people who'd ended up starting a flame war over one of his articles? He definitely wasn't coming to apologize.
しんちゃん行くよ。
ああ
Alright, I pulled Watabe's article up on the PC screen. Alright, okay, this is the same one as before.
まだ緩く炎上してるな。
The pace of the comments was starting to slow down, but they remained basically negative. There was no way Watabe wouldn't have noticed that. Of course, he would have noticed our video as well. A lot of the comments were posting the link.
なんだって言うんだ。
Did he want to ask us something about the sumo stickers? No, he wouldn't need to do an interview if that was the case. And in any event, he'd uploaded a close-up photo of the sumo sticker revolving dead, which we hadn't been able to incorporate into our video even though we'd been at the scene. We'd had to go back to the Love Hotel and upload a photo we'd taken from the street. To be honest, our article was basically the same as his, but his photos were a lot better. I couldn't imagine that there was anything he wanted to ask us.
もしかして病院のこと。
That was impossible. No one but me and Serica knew about it. No, there was no point in thinking about it. I needed to get ready for the interview, and then do what Kurusu asked me.
Huh?
Huh? Something bothered me, so I went over to the board.
回転デッドの力士シールのアップの画像は。
I carefully removed the one that was on the board. I knew it.
表情が違ってる。
Interesting. I went back in front of the map and put the picture back on. The photo that we had taken of the sticker and the sticker in Watabe's article were different. What was going on with that? Once everyone got back to the club room, I planned to talk with them about it. October 8th, 2015, Thursday. We're getting close. We're getting close to October 10th when the next murder is supposedly going to happen. It's probably going to happen during the Culture Festival, right? 11:45 p.m., the Shibuya Earthquake Memorial. The town was silent, as if it didn't even know she was there. She was standing before the names of the dead, as unmoving as the stone in front of her. In fact, it was hard to tell she wasn't dead herself. The wind that blew down from the tops of the buildings refused to touch her scraggly hair. The eyes that poked out through her hair were cloudy and lifeless, and her lip was pressed into a frown. Oh, there's that dragging sound. It's that girl from the beginning. She must not have bathed recently because the smell around her was terrible. Her black clothes melted into the darkness, making the red jacket stand out a little against the gloom. A sound came from her lips. She pressed her jaw together as if trying to crush a piece of meat. Her leg dragged along as she started to walk, her head facing the ground. In that moment, she stood out from the scene around her. The hair pressed against her face made it impossible to read her expression. But the most notable thing about her wasn't the stench, or the sound of her gritting teeth. It was her anger and rage. That anger and rage covered everything about her. Her legs came to a stop. She reached out a glove-covered hand and touched a name on the memorial. She dug her fingernail into it. She scratched again and again, as if trying to rub it out. Her nail broke inside the glove, unable to handle the force. But she didn't stop. She ignored the blood dribbling out of her glove as if she didn't feel any pain. Red continued to stain the memorial stone. The date changed. It was now October 9th. There was only one day left until October 10th, the date of the next New Generation Madness killing. All right, I wonder if Ed Lucas is he that teacher? I apologize for the wait. The test images spreading rapidly as expected. And then there's this Ami-chan, maintain things as they are. Yes. And the target? We'll make contact with a reporter named Watabe tomorrow. Kill him. I'm guessing Ed Lucas is the teacher. I mean, the fact that he knows about the interview. Chapter 3, School Festival. Their side of the festival's tale. October 9th, 2015, Friday.
さて、以上のように私の取材によって一連の事件はニュージェネレーションの狂気と呼ばれたあの事件を踏襲していると断言しても良いと思われるわけですが、その事実にこの私とほぼ同じくして気づいた動画がアップされていたのを皆さんご存知でしょうか。そうです、渋谷区にある碧峰学園の新聞部による動画です。私のようにジャーナリズムを目指すと思われる若者たちがこうして育ってきていることは非常に喜ばしい限りです。
He says that, and I mean, I think he has to address it because people kept bringing it up, but I wonder if he's actually like pissed about it.
そして当の渋谷ではあの忌まわしい事件からの再出発を記念すべく近々復興祭が行われることになっています。それに先立ちまして私はその碧峰学園にて明日文化祭が行われるという情報を入手いたしました。そう、その通り。
He's saying tomorrow, the same day that the murder is supposed to happen, right?
さすが勘のいい皆さんはすでにお分かりのようですが、明日の午後文化祭中である碧峰学園に赴き新聞部に突撃インタビューを行おうと考えております。ジャーナリズムを目指す若者たちの今、そしてもちろん彼らがどのようにして私と同じ情報を得事件の裏に隠された共通点に到達することができたのかを突っ込んで聞いてみたいと思います。彼らとの対話によっては事件の犯人像にさらに近づけるかもしれません。真実の追求、それが我々ジャーナリストの使命であり証であります。それでは本日の放送はここまでです。明日の対談、果たしてどんな話が飛び出すのか、そして事件の真相はお見逃しなく。
お疲れ様でした。
Yeah, look at that smug face, right? I knew it. I knew this guy was an asshole.
いや、なんでもないよ。
そうっすか。それより見てくださいよ、今日のカウント数新記録ですよ。それだけ世間の注目が高いってことっすね。
当たり前だろ、俺がやってんだから。
I love how the guy can't even like hide he can't even mask himself as not being an asshole for like a couple of minutes.
いや、
そうっすか。まあ明日の放送も楽しみにしてますよ。
任せておけ。明日はもっとカウントいく放送にしてやるよ。
I wonder if he's gonna like straight up accuse them, be like, you guys found the truth because you know about the murders, like you know you're involved somehow. Something explosive. It's not just gonna be a simple interview.
この俺の手でな。
疲れた。
I put the cardboard box I was carrying down on the desk. Finally, I was able to relax. Compared to the physical therapy I'd done after my coma, this was nothing, but my arms and legs were sore.
だいたいどうして僕たちが生徒会の仕事なんて。
そりゃ俺たちが生徒会に迷惑かけちまったからだろ。
Ito was standing next to the windowsill where the warm sunlight was pouring in. He looked comfortable. There was no one in the room but me and him.
確かに生徒会の仕事を手伝う約束はしたけどさ。 いくらなんでもこき使いすぎだ。
I'd been running around all day carrying one thing or another. Everyone, myself most of all, knew I wasn't cut out for physical labor. And what's more,
伊藤、
how the hell could he be playing with his smartphone when I was working so hard? After I complained, he said,
んなこと言ったって、クレーム対応は嫌だって言ったのはお前だろ。
With just one day left until the festival, all the clubs had complaints and demands to make of the student council. They'd asked for someone who could listen to them and relay them to the student council, and I decided there was no way I could do that, so I left it to Ito.
それより見たかこれ。
Ito showed me his phone, which he'd been playing with.
なんだ。
さっき渡部が配信してたんだよ。明日のこといろいろ喋ってたぞ。
え？
Just like Ito said, the phone was playing a video that had gone up in the last half hour.
それに見ろよ、このカウント数。最近の報道でどんどん伸びてるっぽいし、明日は期待してもいいかもな。
期待ね。
なんだよ、そのリアクション。お前だって昨日は興奮してただろ。
I won't deny I got a little excited when I heard about tomorrow's interview. However,
やっぱりいいように利用されているだけの気がするんだよな。そもそもあの情報自体、僕たちの方が早く配信してたんだぞ。それを渡部はいかにも同じタイミングだったみたいに扱ってる。
it was a common media trick to suggest things that weren't true without actually lying.
自分の方が後出しだったってことをうやむやにしようとしてるってわけか？
ああ。
Yeah, because wasn't it like they had uploaded it a full day before? And it also felt like he was trying to use all the flame wars to up his view counts.
仮にそうだとしたら、どうするんだよ、明日のインタビュー。
別に普通に受けるよ。それが学校側からの条件なんだから。
No, honestly, I'd like to shoot him down and show him up as a liar.
けど
The second I started to get a little excited, the mark left on my cheek after Kawahara-kun hit me started to ache. For now, I needed to focus on helping the student council, not the case.
あれ、そういえば川原くんは？
ああ、なんだっけ。校庭にあっただろ。風鈴だかなんだか飾るやつ。
ああ、願い事がどうとかいう。
One of the classes was doing something about the Shibuya earthquake. It said they were making an area where you would write your wish on a sheet of paper that would be tied to a wind chime. We'd been told to submit something, but I hadn't. To be honest, I didn't really like stuff like that.
あれの設置で走り回ってるってさっき。
あ、
Speak of the devil. Kawahara-kun frowned a little when he saw me. He started to open his mouth, but closed it, glanced at Ito, and then sighed, something in him deciding to just give up.
終わったのか。
Kawahara-kun was looking at the box I'd been carrying.
はい。
じゃあ次は受付にパンフ運んでくれ。
パンフレットですね。わかりました。
いってらっしゃい。
I glared at Ito, then picked up the box with the pamphlets and went to leave the student council room. Kawahara-kun was still frowning at me. That's strange. Yeah, he almost looked a little sad, almost like he felt maybe a little ashamed or guilty for hitting me. I was sure he'd say something about Kurusu, or at least insult me. After I finished carrying the pamphlets, I went to buy a drink from the vending machine. If I didn't get some caffeine from a mountain view, I wasn't going to be able to move for much longer. Someone was tugging at the hem of my uniform. I quickly turned around.
はい、なんでしょう。で、和樹か。脅かすなよ。
She'd been sent to help with her class's display, which was just about finished up.
クラスの仕事終わったのか？だったら生徒会の方の手伝いを頼む。
Kazuki tugged even harder at my uniform.
いや、だから生徒会の手伝いを。もしかしてついてこいって言ってるのか？
She nodded. Oh, all right. Let's do positive. Her expression hadn't changed, but it seemed like she was having some kind of trouble. What was going on? Did she want me to help with something? I needed to get back to the student council room. But it was incredibly rare for Kazuki to actually come to me for help. It wouldn't be right to just ignore her.
わかったよ。しょうがないからついてってやる。
No way. Did Kazuki just grin? That was something you almost never saw.
それでどこへ行くんだ？
I faintly hoped something incredible was about to happen. Kazuki grabbed my sleeve and started walking. She took me up to the roof of the school.
Help me.
I suddenly heard a girl's voice. I looked around, but only the two of us were there.
なんだ、ただの空耳か。
Help me.
No, I wasn't imagining it. I really did hear it. I looked around again. But there was nobody there except for me and Kazuki, and there was no place for anyone to hide, which meant...
もしかして、今の、カズキ、お前か？お前喋れたのか？
No, I mean, of course she can talk, but it was just really surprising, okay?
でもどうしていきなり。
Help me, タクル宮代。You are my only hope.
は？
Why was she speaking English? Could Kazuki maybe not speak Japanese? Maybe she'd grown up outside of the country. Maybe that's why she never talked. But her English didn't seem very good. And then suddenly, a loud fanfare played. Where was that sound coming from? As I looked around frantically, giant words appeared in the sky and started to scroll. A long time ago in a galaxy, a long ways off. Space Wars, Episode 34. The Kazuki Galactic Empire has endured civil war for a century. In the midst of the battle, Princess Kazuki, she's a princess. That's key to saving the Galactic War and saving the whole universe. Well, this is certainly out there. This is very interesting.
何？
AR, or projection mapping? Projection mapping, a general term for technology that displays images on an object or a space rather than a flat surface. Images can be projected mapped onto anything, such as human bodies, trees, or paintings, but it is especially common to projection map onto a building. The use of projection mapping on buildings at city stations and tourist sites is becoming more and more popular both inside and outside Japan. Kazuki's expression didn't change at all.
私の本名はカーズキー・ハンナ。カーズキー大聖団帝国である銀河帝王ルドルフ15世の第8王女です。
I love his reactions, huh? Every time he's like, eh?
ちなみに、あなたは私
You
の
are my
双子の兄
twin
です。
brother.
あと、最終的にあなたは生き別れの実の父親と戦うことになります。
That means that the two of them are going to
つ
get
まりルドル
together
フ
as
15
well.
世のことですが。というわけで、助けてください。
というわけで、とか言われてもな。ダイジェストで説明されても困る。
さあ、行きましょう。
どこへ？
あの星の彼方へ。
Okay, that was an interesting one. Did some part of me want to put on a Spark Wars play at the Culture Festival or something? A Hollywood movie franchise whose first entry released in 1977 yet still has an active fan base to this day. Spark Wars is a space opera composed of 6 episodes, but it was revealed that it was originally planned to be a 9-episode series. The innovative special effects used to bring its vast universe to life are still highly regarded even many years later. What did I call it? I called it Space Wars, not Spark Wars. That surprised even me, but Spark Wars was too old for a high school kid to use in a play. I considered this as I walked, and the next thing I knew, I was in the courtyard. Kazuki stopped in front of some large object with a vinyl covering on top of it. What was this thing? Kazuki stared at it for a moment and then pointed at it.
もしかしてこれを運ばなきゃならないとか
She nodded, but what was this thing anyway? Oh, okay. It's like a Gundam thing. A gun barrel. She took a piece of paper out of her pocket. It looked like some sort of handmade flyer. In bright colors and big letters, it said, Class 1A, let's build a gun barrel project. Short for Mobile Battler Gun Barrel, a 3-part anime series that aired from 2012 to 2015. The show features a total of 155 episodes. The program took a unique approach to marketing broadcast in 110 countries before releasing in Japan, causing a boom to occur in those countries far before it did in Japan. It was created to target the teenage male demographic with toys and other merchandise produced for it, just like any other mecha anime. However, the Egyptian mythology motif behind its story and the impressive CGI battles made it popular enough to receive a movie adaptation. Despite this, the final episode of the 3rd season was recently inexplicably cancelled in a very controversial move even among the show's biggest fans. The story is about Doto Genki, a 14-year-old boy who pilots a martial arts robot known as a Ka Trooper. A global-scale epic unfolds around him, spanning the past, present, and future. The Season 1 theme song was sung by a gothic punk band known as Phantasm. They pop up again, which had a fairly large cult following at the time.
頑張れるってアニメの
Gun Barrel was an anime that started back when I was in middle school. While most anime these days only lasted 3 to 6 months, Gun Barrel had been on forever. In fact, it had just ended the other day. And some idiot had decided to cancel it just before the last episode could air. This had caused a huge uproar. All this made Gun Barrel a truly legendary anime.
これって和樹のクラスの展示物
I see. They must have been attempting to make a model of the robot from the anime. And so they'd made all the parts in the courtyard, and now they had to get them to their classroom.
でもなんで和樹が一人で運ばなきゃならないんだクラスの連中は
I followed Kazuki's gaze over to the entrance and saw students in pairs happily carrying large objects covered in sheets.
なるほどぼっちには辛い状況だな
Don't kick me in the shin. And if you're going to kick me in the shin, don't do it so hard.
誰がぼっちだ違うわ今日はたまたま仲のいい子が休んでるだけだからすまん僕の勘違いだ
I decided to play along.
で僕にどうしろと代わりに運ぶのを手伝えってでもこれって重いんじゃないのか
Don't look at me with those puppy dog eyes. Oh, fine. Normally, I would have found some way to get out of it, but if Kurusu wanted the culture festival to succeed, I didn't have a choice. I reached down to grab the object under the sheet.
よしそっち回ってさあいっせーので持ち上げるぞいくぞいっせーのおいお前リズム感ないのか完全にずれてるぞ遅い
We weren't in sync at all. She would lift up a moment or two after I did. Because of that, we almost dropped it to the ground.
僕が悪いみたいな顔をするなよもう一回やるぞいっせー今度は早っも ういい。和樹に僕が合わせるから、とにかく持ち上げろ。
As she started to lift, I did too. We staggered, but managed to keep it steady.
よし。それじゃ、このまま運ぼう。
We slowly headed toward Kazuki's classroom, counting 1, 2, 1, 2 to keep ourselves in unison. Of course, I was the only one who actually spoke.
そこんとこ角になってるからな。気をつけろよ。
We made it to the stairs. This was where things got hard.
先に登って。そうそう。そのままゆっくりゆっくり。踏み外すな。踏み外すんじゃないぞ。
But making Kazuki go up first so I could hold it from the bottom was a mistake.
あ、おい。
Even after all my warnings, Kazuki slipped and...
う
Damn it, I told you not to trip. We were just lucky we hadn't climbed up that much.
大丈夫か、和樹。
Of course. This situation is... Oh boy, let's go negative for this one. She just straight up murders him. Something you see all the time in anime, isn't it? We're gonna subvert it. Anyway, I need to do something about this. Kazuki's so light, though. Well, she isn't very tall, but she has a pretty good body, so actually... Wait, what am I thinking? What if someone comes by and sees us? This girl's hopeless. I'd better do something quick. But part of me wants to enjoy the sensation a little more.
監視されているの。
Huh? Her voice was so soft I could barely hear it. If I hadn't been directly under her, I wouldn't have been able to hear it at all.
私は監視されています。24時間ずっとです。学校にいる時も、通学途中も、家にいる時も、ゲームをしている時も、監視の目を感じるんです。
I like how she went from I'm a princess, I'm a space princess to now this shit.
彼らは巧妙に姿を隠しているんですよ。実際には隠していないのですが、隠さないことで逆に紛れているんです。そうしてたまに私に接触してきます。それは彼らなりの警告です。お前を監視しているぞと私に教えているんですね。
And then I realized it wasn't that Kazuki wasn't talking. It was simply no one had ever heard her.
今日は学校に来る途中でサラリーマンの男の人とぶつかりました。私はカバンの中身をぶちまけてしまいました。その人は謝りながら拾うのを手伝ってくれたんですよ。その人も彼らの仲間であり、私を監視している一人です。間違いないです。街のあちこちにいるんです。そうやって何気なく私を見張っている人は他にもたくさんいます。家には調べてはいませんが、盗聴器がおそらく10個以上は仕掛けられているでしょうね。なぜ調べないのかといえば、調べると彼らに気づかれるからです。もし私が盗聴器の存在に気づいていることが知られたら、彼らはもっと直接的な行動に出てくるでしょう。だから私は気づかないふりをすることしかできません。家の前の駐車場にはいつも怪しい白いワゴンが止まっています。その車は本当に毎日ずっとそこに止まっているんです。一度人が乗っているのを見ました。エンジンもかけずに助手席に座っていました。運転席は空っぽでした。盗聴器が拾う音を聞いていたんだと思います。学校でも常に見張られています。今こうして先輩と密着していることもすでに上に報告されているでしょうね。生徒の中にスパイが紛れ込んでいます。しかも一人や二人ではなく何十人という数です。私が校内のどこへ行こうとも必ず誰かが私を見ています。 例えば私のクラスの大河内さんはスパイです。以前1週間の間にトイレで8回も会いました。私を尾行しているんです。直接大河内さんにあなたはスパイでしょうと聞いてみました。正しくは怒鳴ったんですが、そうしたら彼女はしまったという顔をして逃げていきました。宮代先輩も私と同じ部なので当然見張られています。のの先輩やセリカ先輩や伊藤先輩に不自然な様子はありませんでしたか？
It'd be funny if like this one-off delusion I'm having actually ended up to be the truth.
視線を感じませんか？私は感じます。
I mean, someone is
私が
looking,
部室でゲ
someone
ームを
is
してい
watching
る
me,
時が多い
someone
で
wants
す。
to kill me, apparently.
場合によってはこそこそと小声で話しているのをわざと私に聞かせてきたりします。そういう時、私は気づいているけれど気づいていないふりをするために壁を殴ります。ええ、隣の部屋の壁越しに声が聞こえてくるんですよ。殴るとしばらくは静かになりますが、また1時間もしないうちにひそひそと話し出すんです。すごくムカつきます。彼らは巧妙に私たちの日常生活の中に紛れ込んでいます。よっぽど注意しないと彼らの正体には気づくことができません。でも私が今
Yeah,
こう
this
し
is
て
going
話した
for
か
a
ら
long
もう
time.
先輩も気づいてしまった。先輩の家も盗聴されています。もしかしたら隠しカメラもあるかも。あの公園のホームレスの中にもスパイはいます。
Maybe Genson's in on it too. I've said about him like I feel like he's more important to the story than first glance.
私のスカートのポケットの中に護身用の催涙スプレーが入っています。それをこっそり持って行ってください。いざという時に使うんです。それとも先輩もスパイですか？だとしたらそう言ってください。私は誰も信じません。先輩のことも信じていません。どうなんですか？
和樹、落ち着いて。
スパイですか？スパイなんですか？スパイですよね。私のこといつも見てますもんね。気持ち悪いです。やめてください。誰か助けて。
She's insane.
お前どうかしてるよ。
That was why she didn't talk. That'd be horrible. We wouldn't be able to be friends after that. Well, that probably wasn't the case. Anyway, I couldn't stay like this forever. I needed to stand up before someone saw me.
和樹、怪我はないか？ほら、じゃあ立って。早いところこれ持っていこう。
Fortunately, the gun barrel part wasn't damaged. We headed to Kazuki's classroom, being careful not to trip this time.
1の A、ここか。
A girl near the entrance saw Kazuki and ran over. She looked like a normal, average girl.
あ、カズキ？運んできてくれたんだ。てっきりバックレたのかと思ってた。あれ？てか、こっちの人は？
いや、
ああ、知ってる。確か新聞部の。明日渡部と対談するって。
I wonder if this is going to make me popular, though, because everyone kind of side-eyes me and thinks I'm weird, but now it's like, oh, Watabe is interested in you, so therefore you're cool. How did she know?
君は？
あ、大河内って言います。
いや、名前じゃなくて、知ってるんですか？その、渡部との。
やだ、みんな知ってますよ。噂になってるし。
Surprised me. I thought only a few people at school would know about a Nikonia reporter. I had no idea a girl like this, who didn't look like she kept up with the news at all, would know about it. And there were even rumors going around about it.
頑張ってくださいね。楽しみにしてますから。
はい、ありがとうございます。
Kazuki ignored the two of us and took the part inside, and silently put it on the floor. No one tried to help her. But as I went over to her,
ああ、わざわざすいません。 あとはこっちでやっとくんで、そこに置いといてください。
That girl, Okoichi, said that to me. I probably mispronounced her name, I apologize. I did as I was asked and left the room, and then Kazuki followed me.
何？
She offered me a lollipop.
くれるのか？
Was this her way of thanking me? But
それ食べかけだ。
I was gonna say, was that the one that was in her mouth? She sighed and put it back in her mouth, then took out a small bag from her skirt pocket. Dried squid. It was dried squid.
どうも。
I've had that before. Do not recommend. I don't like it personally.
手が空いたら生徒会の方も手伝ってくれよ。一応部員なんだから。
Kazuki shrugged and walked up the stairs. Maybe she was going back to the club room to play her game some more. I probably couldn't count on her help. October 9th, 2015, Friday. Tashita Hiroko was working at her part-time job as a grocery store cashier. Her husband was always out working late, but he didn't actually make any money. His airheaded personality meant he was primarily, I've never seen that word before. Perennially, we'll just say constantly stuck in lower management. Her son was in college and spent all his time playing. She was spending a lot of money to send him there, but he'd grown into a selfish boy who constantly demanded cars and trips. Of course, their budget was always stretched to the limit. They hadn't built up any kind of savings. They lived in Shibuya, true, but she had to live with her in-laws, which didn't make things easy. The idea of going to lunch with her friends from the neighborhood seemed as remote as the fiction she saw paraded on the news every night. She wanted an easier life. Lately, she'd been all sighs. Yesterday, she'd actually sighed at work and gotten a warning from her boss. The store where she worked was along Meiji-dori, about a 5-minute walk from Shibuya. The lunchtime rush had ended and things were calming down. She wanted to take a break, but it wasn't break time yet.
合計で3127円になります。
The woman in front of her who was taking out her wallet was one she had seen several times before. She wore fancy clothes and had a slender, attractive body. Her makeup was perfect, too, even when she was only going shopping at a supermarket. She must live in a different world. Maybe she was what they called a celebrity wife. The woman seemed very anxious as she waited for her to finish. Tashita hadn't even handed over her change yet, and she'd already lifted up her shopping bag. What was bothering her so much? Was she feeling sick? She did seem a little pale. Tashita wondered about her, but they didn't have enough of a relationship that she felt comfortable asking. She handed her the receipt and her change, and the woman quickly left. Tashita greeted the next customer, and then gasped. It was a man. Oh. And he was wearing a mask. The mask had the same design as those things they called sumo stickers. She'd heard about the stickers on the news several days ago. She'd learned that lately they were popular in Shibuya and nowhere else. She had seen them several times on her way to and from work. It was a disgusting design, and the idea of Shibuya being overrun with the things made her sick. And this man was wearing a mask with the same design. That meant she couldn't see his face. His clothes were completely normal. They weren't particularly filthy, and he didn't look like a pervert or a crazy man. But that made it even stranger that he'd be wearing a mask to hide his face, and one so poorly constructed that it was obviously handmade. Was this why the last customer had seemed so anxious? The man was standing completely still. He didn't say anything to Tashita, and then she realized she'd been staring at his face for quite a long time.
すみません。いらっしゃいませ。
She looked inside his shopping basket. It was filled with several bowls of instant ramen and a single 2-liter.
4378円になります。
As she gave him the total, she happened to see the customers in the other lanes. This time, she was struck completely silent. Oh god, are they all wearing masks too? It wasn't just her register. Every single register. Oh shit, had a customer wearing a mask. What the fuck? There were so many of them, and they were all standing silently. There were already 10 people lined up at her register, and all of them were wearing sumo sticker masks. I worked retail before, and I'm just like, I've encountered some weird stuff, but this would probably have me be like, yeah, I'm gonna take my break early and get the fuck out of here. The store never got this busy, even at lunchtime on a Saturday. The only thing the people in the masks had in common was they were men. They all wore different clothes. A tall man in a sweatshirt, a fat, middle-aged man in running clothes, a well-built man in a sweater, so on and so on. Not all of them looked like they had steady jobs, but not all of them looked like they were unemployed. And not one of them said a word. They just stood there in a line, masks on their heads, baskets in their hands. The noisy supermarket suddenly fell silent. All the other employees and customers stared at the men in the masks, eyes wide. She's like, why are they all in my lane? Why? All right, so that's going to do it for this episode. Sorry for it being a little bit of a shorter episode. Not too much happening, but Kurusu, she's okay after the stabbing. Learning about the guy who attacked her was saying something about a barrier, which is similar to what Takeru saw on that website of the guy who was, babbling on about the sumo stickers and everything. So she was not stabbed on the 10th, so this wasn't an attempt at like having another victim for the connection to the new madness, new gen madness cases. And there was that whole thing at the end with the guys in the sumo masks, so it seems like it's almost like a cult is being created of the sumo stickers, like what is happening. And then we got a little bit of insight into this Watabe guy, who of course is not, a journalist with integrity. He's just all about the views, making money, having people watch him. And he has a interview set up with the newspaper club, but of course he's not going in with good intentions, so that'll be really interesting. I imagine we'll probably hopefully be seeing that interview in the next episode, and maybe even a murder, because we're coming up on the 10th now, so we'll see what happens next episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and stay tuned next week for part 7. Until then, bye. Special shoutouts to my top tier patrons: Revealing Storm, Lynn's VA, Kenju Storm, iCognito, Kevlar, Sean, Waz RD1, iZuzu, and Ronnie RKX.